All right, Blue Loopers, I don't know if this will work or not, but I am in the atrium at Mall of America. I figured I'd intro here, one, so you can see our public art display, Kaleidoscope. Above me is the Mama Monarch, who has a 60-foot wingspan and is surrounded by over 300 other smaller monarchs. It's a project that we were happy to work on last year and worked with a local artist. All of the butterflies are made out of items that have been pulled from the waste stream. So it's coat hangers, fabric, screen printed on the wings, dryer lint, and it was a really unique construction. We're really happy to have done it. The eyes on the big monarch are bike helmets. Super cool piece. All right, so anyway, to try and give a sense of scale and scope of how big Mall of America is, I'm gonna walk from the atrium, which is the north entrance, to the east entrance.
Hello, I'm Louis Alfieri with Ravensun Creative at the blooloop V-Expo, and we have the great privilege and opportunity today to speak with Chris Grap, who's the lead creative director for the Mall of America. How are you doing today, Chris?
That felt like a pretty big intro, actually. Very complimentary, but yes, I'm doing well today. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you here with us today, and we're very excited to talk to you about your role, the creative efforts that you have, and the Mall of America. So can you kind of, set the stage for us and talk a little bit about the Mall of America, 555, and your role there?
Sure. It's interesting. I feel like my role has developed over time. When I started here, I originally applied for a theater marketing position because at the time we owned and operated our own theaters. And I actually did not get that position. But Jill Renslow, our senior VP of business development and marketing, hired me on as a business development specialist. And I like to joke that I still don't know what that is, but actually in reality, what it was an opportunity. And working with Jill Renslow and Dan Jasper, who's our VP of communications, we've really focused on delving further into the experience of our guest. And it feels like that seems kind of obvious now, but really even 8 years ago, there was so much focus on retail that you could see the tide turning and what was really important to guests at the time and within the space even of those retailers. So we've worked on it with our partners at Nickelodeon for Nickelodeon Universe, our partners here in events and entertainment, and really trying to hone in on making the guest experience special. So no matter where they walk in or where they exit, they feel like they've had a positive experience when they're here.
Fantastic. It's very interesting, in terms of what you're doing. You are participating amongst 530 different stores, entities, and brands, and you're delivering experiences across attractions, large-scale events, pop-ups, activations, placemaking, and public and private space. How has story been impactful in crafting and creating your guest experience and kind of making that extraordinary for all the visitors?
Sure, I think it's essential. And I think a lot of times the word story can be scary. And I think when we started talking about it, even 6 or 8 years ago, it conjures up this vision of somebody maybe sitting with a pad of paper under a peach tree, trying to write a poem or something. But really, story can be a moment. And what we want to do is be impactful in our guest stories in this space. So some of the tropes that we employ are very simple, like what's in the box? that in and of itself is a great hook and story, or what happens when the clock hits 0. So what we've really tried to do is curate moments. I feel like our main objective is to get guests in the building and then pass that baton to the retailers where they bring them into their space. So hopefully by working together with all of our partners, we can create enough of those moments where it's worth our guests' time. And I guess from my perspective, the currency I'm after is time. We speak of time the same way we speak of money. And
Correct,
if
correct.
you're going to spend time with us, I want to make sure that you've had a good time. And I think in creating those positive moments, that then in turn brings people back.
Absolutely. You know, and I think, you know, something we talk about often is that, you know, we don't remember days, we remember moments, and that those moments need to be defining moments and kinds of those memories that people take away from that. So, you know, one thing that you deal with in speaking about that particular subject is your time is kind of liquid between how they're entering the building, how they're going to be there at a time of day or a time of year. How do you kind of approach that from a strategic creative standpoint to kind of think about what engagements you want to create in those time frames, or how you want to perhaps developing an experience to focus on a specific time or demographic of the day to build momentum and those opportunities with guests?
Sure, and you're certainly right. We do remember moments. And I think one of the things that makes our property so special is ask anybody that I work with, and everybody has those moments from before they worked here or during their time with the guest here. And there's really such a passion for this space and how special it can be that we do our best work when we collaborate together. And so I think to your point, there are times where it's easier, like holiday tends to be a little bit of low-hanging fruit because everybody's in the mood for nostalgia and shared experiences. And outside of that, it's really focusing on whether it's the ebb and flow of traffic, tourism, school being in session, and being cognizant of those changes and patterns for our guests and trying to anticipate a little bit of the type of thing they would be after. I mean, obviously, this year, everything's upside down and we're doing the best we can to create those moments for everybody given the parameters that we have. But I think that's it. And really being in this space, it's a privilege because we're able to go out and see how our guests interact in the moment. We don't have to wait for feedback. We don't have to necessarily conduct an exit survey. We can sit back and watch anonymously and see how they engage. And I think being able to react to those things is one of the things that makes us unique as well.
Absolutely. And I think it's very fascinating your ability to draw 40 million people a year to your property gives you an amazing opportunity to have touch points with people of all ages, all nationalities, all backgrounds as a domestic tourist location, as an international destination. How does that factor into kind of the themes or the things that you develop to create the guest experiences that touch on all these different people, demographics, and those kind of interactions?
It changes. It changes, it ebbs and flows. And again, to your point, 530 retailers, chances are we're going to have something you're looking for anyway.
Right.
So really it's in those moments of transition too, when we are hosting an event or when we're putting thought into our directories, making sure that there's opportunity from a technology standpoint, multilingual capabilities, staff training, or guest training, guest service training, and being aware of who's in the space and how we can best do that. So from an event standpoint, again, I'll kind of lean on holiday, where a few years ago we had the opportunity to create essentially an army of nutcrackers. And they're 12 to 15 feet tall, depending on their fancy hat. And when we were looking at the color palette, we wanted to be subtle enough that people could see something they recognized within the colors, not be so overt with perhaps these are the colors of your favorite sports team or the country you're from, but finding those bits of inclusivity where people can imbue the meaning that they want to from it. is something that we strive for when we can as well.
Well, it's wonderful, you know, when creating their own story that you're giving them agency to participate in that way and give them, it's not entirely linear, but it's a free enough platform for them to kind of participate and make it their own.
Exactly. I think that's important because we don't know the type of experience they had before they walked into the space, and all we can do is our best and at least attempt for great moments while they're with us.
So in that context, you know, how do you incorporate technology within that? Obviously, you know, you've just mentioned that you're able to observe the guest in real time and react to what their participation is, their reaction to those events. You know, technology itself can be an experience, or it can be, you know, a layer within an experience. How do you approach the technology and that interaction with your guests and the experiences that you create?
Right. And the experience can be so broad as well. So where I think we find the most success with technology is in our directories. Because again, as you can go out and interface with the guests, a lot of the things that they need are wayfinding. And so to be able to create a technological platform that is familiar because they're used to a cell phone or an iPad, that has multi-language capability, that has blue dot technology that can show you exactly where you are and where you need to go. That type of technology, I think, is where we see great success. Where things get a little different in an experiential standpoint is you know, the shiny object could be bait. You see it at a trade show and you see everybody excited about it there. That doesn't necessarily, it's going to work for somebody from North Dakota who's never seen it before, or somebody who's you know what I mean? We have to be a little bit aware of how it is in the space. So I think what we like to do in the experiences we design is technology is in the background, and that there are layers to what we're trying to do. So if the technology fails, you still have a good experience. So for example, and forgive me, I lean on this one a lot, but I love it so much. At the entrance to Nickelodeon Universe at the east side of the property, there is a hard sculpted slime chair. And on its own, it looks awesome and inviting. But then if you sit down in it, there's a 2-second delay, and then one of 30 different shows triggers where it'll either rumble and blow your hair or fart, or, you know, it's just a little moment of surprise. And when that works and it's all firing, fantastic. But even if it doesn't, people get a great photo op and they're ready for a little bit of an irreverent time in Nickelodeon Universe. So like that's one way we leverage those types of gags. Same thing with our Santa experience that we've really worked hard to design. One of the things we've tried to do in the past is make it more customizable to the individual guest. And I think we're getting better at that with blind technology. So mom and dad have an opportunity to input the children's name, and then they get their ticket to see Santa, and it can be scanned and there's a hidden monitor, and Santa, as if by magic, knows the children's names already and what they want. So things like that are fun and important little surprises. But when it's something that a guest has to interact with on their own that just feels like a piece of technology, there's a little bit of an intimidation factor, I think, for some people that aren't familiar.
Right,
and
right.
I kind of liken it to the surf machines at water parks. Like, somebody who's good at it can ride that thing, but really we're just all watching to see the person wipe out. And nobody wants to be the person to wipe out. And it's the same thing if they're in an experience like that where technology is too forward. So.
And, you know, I think I find that true, you know, that same analogy with people's reaction to VR in a public space at the moment. You know, it's a phenomenal storytelling technology. It's got great potential to really be something fantastic. But in a group session at the moment, it's a little more challenging for those that are not immediately in the experience to participate. I don't know if you're using VR at the moment, but have you explored that, and how has that kind of worked in the public space?
We haven't, as a property, we haven't brought it forward into any of the experiences that we've designed. We've certainly had partners who have brought it in, and we have tenants that use it, and they use it very well because they've got dollars behind it and IPs behind it that make it very exciting. Where we have tried to do it before would be like in a trade show. So for example, if you've never been to Mall of America and I'm trying to explain to you how big it is, it's difficult. But when we can put a headset on you and you can turn around and see the expanse of the space, that's something that can be effective and a good tool for us.
For the people that I have been to the Mall of America, but I'm sure many of the people here at the show have never had the opportunity to make it to Minneapolis for that. Can you give them a sense of the magnitude of the space? And when we say 530 stores, I don't think people really grasp how many levels, what the size of this is, the theme park. You know, it's massive.
It is massive. And when you speak in numbers so large, it almost feels like it becomes meaningless. Like when I tell you it's 5.6 million square feet, can you visualize what that is? Like, it's an impressive number. But for example, even before this, I sent you an email apologizing. I might be late because I have to cross the building to get to another location. So if you walk each level, it's, you know, level 1, that's a mile. Level 2, that's a mile. It is massive. So depending on where you are, it can be 3 levels or 4 levels. And then the beating heart of the building is a 7.5 acre Nickelodeon Universe theme park. It is a fun sandbox to play in.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. You know, I think it's as a leading global creative and curator of these experiences, you are at the very forefront of the retailtainment evolution, if you will. You know, what's going on in that space. You know, and that's interesting to a lot of people. There's a lot of convergence right now on technology, entertainment, food, beverage, and in terms of what these experiences are and how to create that overall curation and experience. What trends do you see outside of COVID-19, which we're going to touch on before the end of the interview, but beyond COVID-19, what kind of experiences do you see evolving within that space at this point? And where do you think you've seen a lot of evolution even in the last years that you've been participating in the space?
Sure. I also think it's interesting, you know, 555 were pioneers in this space before it had a name, you know, and honestly, I spent the first probably 6 years of my career going out and meeting people at trade shows and, you know, explaining I'm from Mall of America, but it's not a mall. It's not a mall. Like, this is not a mall. But now I've changed my tune where we are the mall. And if you want to succeed in the retailtainment space, you have to look at the things that 555, Mall of America, West Edmonton, and now American Dream have been doing in order to keep up, because that's the expectation. A lot of retailers are really pushing experiential stores as well versus what we remember as traditional retail.
Right.
So I think, again, it's challenging to go back to even in February and the plans that we had for the year and where we were moving things. But I think we have such a strong and passionate team, and we all collaborate together on these things, that identifying trends is one thing, and that's great for the retailers that we bring in, and it's great for the guests that we go after to bring into the space. But really, at the root of it all, nothing that goes out of, having a good time doesn't go out of style. Enjoying a meal with your friends and family doesn't go out of style. And I think part of the success is doing the things that you would expect us to do well, doing them really well, and continuing to offer that. And then we have the flexibility to try new things on the perimeters of those experiences. And again, being able to identify what guests are enjoying about those experiences can help inform what we do next. So you don't, again, want to lead too much with technology or get too distracted by the shiny object, because at the end of the day, we all still want to feel fulfilled in how we spent our time.
Well, and I think, you know, that's a great segue into kind of talking a little bit about C19. And everybody's been kind of C19 to death, but I think in your case, it's informative and transformative, you know, because you are a global destination, and in many ways, I think a cultural center in Minneapolis, because you're in a cold region. Many people come there to have this kind of shared human experience. And the winter's, you know, approaching on us. So there's going to be, you know, the outdoor situation with C19s going to pass. And you're really going to become kind of a communal grounding and communal space for the guests to participate with. What are you thinking about creating or accelerating as a result of those changes, kind of in light of how you're creating that human experience? that it has to be extraordinary and touch them in that way. And you're going to be doing that in an even more challenging environment than you had previously.
We were having a conversation earlier today. Holiday is fast approaching, and we're trying to solve how we want to approach Santa this year and visits with Santa. And to me, it's kind of like an episode of Lost, that every time we get a question answered, there's two more questions, and then are we actually just dead or in purgatory? What is happening here? So there are so many different boxes to check. And as we are developing experiences, we're working with the city, we're working with the state to make sure that we are delivering first and foremost the safest environment for our guests that we can, because that is this year paramount. There are tons of things that we would love to do, but at the end of the day, we want to provide a safe experience for our guests. So again, it kind of goes back to doing some of those things simple, well. We are looking at how technology can make some of these experiences better for the situation so we can reduce touch points. But really, I think it's just being able to work within the ever-changing kind of landscape of how many folks can be in the space at the time, how we can control traffic, how we can identify those pieces. And that's really kind of boring. And that's where I struggle with those things, but it's the reality of, again, everybody ideating over how we're going to deliver these moments for folks. So I think a lot of it is putting the power in the guests' hands too, where we can kind of reimagine moments, but instead of us hosting or guiding, whether it's our entertainment team or guest service staff, but allowing the guests to interact with those things however they see fit, and then working again to ensure that they're safe and sanitized or whatever the need may be. And I know that's kind of a broad answer, but I think we're all kind of in that space.
Well, the challenge, it's complicated. You know, it's an ever shifting scenario at the moment because the experience or the situation continues to evolve, and we're only in the first few months of many people being open. In your case, it's also challenging because you're negotiating brands and multiple tenants and public spaces. And some of those, I would assume at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, kind of the things that you did before February and what you're doing now in relation to public space or how you're creating those moments and balancing that with the requests of the tenants and placemaking overall has changed somewhat. And that, while boring, is also a kind of a very challenging creative brief to try and manage and solve for.
And, you know, boring is probably the wrong word to choose, but it's like, I just, you know, it would be great to just have the opportunity to play the way that we did. So when we have to continue to find those creative solutions, again, again, I'm a movie nerd. So to me, it's like Star Wars Episode 4, when you had limited resources and you delivered this amazing thing. And then you get to Episode 1 and it's kind of bloated and weird and they had all the resources they needed. So again, working with our partners and identifying those things is step one. But then putting the trust in the guests to observe those things and play along with us has been paramount. And I believe everybody has been doing that. So that gives us a little bit more agency and flexibility since we've been open to see how people are negotiating and using the space. And certainly, yes, when winter comes, chances are it'll be busier and different, but we're gonna know how to manage those spaces just from the experience that we've had. So there's a lot of challenges. We've come up with solutions. Like, for example, Nickelodeon Universe is a non-gated theme park. It's never been gated. Guests could free flow through it however they wanted to. But in order for us to reopen the park, in this instance, we had to work fast to make it a gated attraction. So even though we're 7.5 acres, we can only allow 250 guests in at one time, which is vastly different than we've ever done before. Because right now, the parameters that are imposed is no gatherings in large spaces over 250 people.
That's a
working
big
to change that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in solving a way to get the park open for that capacity, we've been able to bring back 100 team members. we're able to deliver experiences like you see behind me to 250 guests at a time. So that really brings a life and an energy back to the space that was absent when the park wasn't open.
And I think that's important, that energy, like those kids, yelling behind you, and the coaster going around, and the energy that brings to the building. A lot of people are missing that right now. And how you create that and how you embody that, I think it's important, kind of a spiritual aspect, kind of the kinetic energy, the emotional energy that you're able to kind of revive in the space. And that I believe location-based entertainment brings to these kinds of different spaces. You agree?
100%, absolutely. And to be able to, this place has always been special to me. I mean, your analogy about the winter and looking for indoor places, that was my first experience really as an adult. I had moved here from Los Angeles. I had my son, and I didn't really know anybody here. So we would come to Mall of America and go to Sea Life. He could probably have given tours at the point when he was 2. He was so familiar with it. But having that communal space is so special. And we're going to deliver that this season too. It's just going to be a little bit different.
And speaking of season, I'm aware that you're a huge horror fan, and the next holiday that's coming up is Halloween. So on a personal level, how have you been able to kind of take some of your creative passions and this amazing platform that you have and kind of meld those together to deliver those kinds of experiences?
Sure. I'm a huge horror fan. And when I worked in film production, much of what I did was low budget horror films. I joke that there was a time where if there was a horror movie with a Roman numeral in the title, chances are I worked on it. But at the end of the day, what I enjoyed about those things is that same thing where we were limited in our resources and we still had to deliver, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it all comes back to storytelling. So for us, I think it's just identifying what works and how people react to certain things. So we've been able to work with partners over the years. Quantum's been a great partner of ours in helping reimagine the lighting in Nickelodeon universe. So it's 7.5 acres of skylights. And then we worked on the ground lighting and what we can do from that platform, because we all respond to the lighting. How it engages with us, how it hits us. So nighttime entertainment, we put in a light show, and that can be changed out seasonally. And that's a really fun aspect for guests. The lamppost lighting in the park, and then just having fun with some of the property that we have. So we have a traditional log flume ride, the log chute within the park. And kind of the showpiece is there's a 27-foot tall animatronic Paul Bunyan and giant Babe the Blue Ox in there. And we found out probably 4 years ago that Paul never had a wardrobe change. And we had found the patterns for Paul's wardrobe, and we decided, well, let's give him an ugly sweater for the holiday. So we started the tradition of giving Paul an ugly sweater every holiday. Now he gets a costume for Halloween, and we're able to do these things, special events, dress up Paul Bunyan and Babe. And it's a fun moment for guests as they go through the log chute to see what Paul and Babe are doing.
Oh, good. There's a lot of moments of discovery in what you're doing, and across all these experiences. It sounds like a theme kind of in terms of creating those opportunities for discovery and kind of repeat or renewed discovery each time.
Sure. And I think it's important that, there's familiarity, but then there's surprises when you can. Like, I am really proud of the Santa experience we had developed up to this point, and a lot of it was based on my experience going to Valley View Mall in La Crosse, Wisconsin as a kid, and feeling like you're in a people corral and everybody can see you and you're waiting to get up there, and then you have your hug and shove moment with Santa, and now you're in retail and it's all over. So our design team here and construction team here really worked to make it feel like it's special for your family. So as you go into the experience, you meander through, a magical forest, and you don't actually see Santa until it's your family's turn. And so then you don't have any pressure, you get that moment, but then Santa also needs your help. He needs your help making snow. So he would give children a coin, and in the retail area, we have this kind of Willy Wonka-esque machine where you would put the coin in, goes up a conveyor, drops down Plinko style, and snow blows out over the children. and then out comes a minted coin with Santa's emblem on one side, and then an icon of one of our giant toys on the other. So we're able to change that year after year as well. So hopefully families come back and enjoy that experience because they get that little trinket from helping Santa make snow.
Right.
Things like that.
And you also, in your winter experience, you created a Twizzard experience, if I'm correct. Could you share some information about that with the viewers?
Sure did. Yes, the Twizzard was one of my favorite things that we've ever done. And I think this is where we like to use technology to affect something physical as well. So the idea behind it was really to just get it to snow inside. We were trying to find a way to get it to snow inside. And we asked the question, could we tweet to make it snow? And again, working with partners across here, it was actually Dan Jasper who came up with the name like this. So like, well, it's a Twitter activated blizzard. Why not a Twizzard? Yes, absolutely. So one of the fun facts about Mall of America is it's always 70 degrees inside. So in the rotunda, which is our main event area, we had digital thermometers that had a readout that said it was 70 degrees. And we incentivized people, we asked them to tweet using the hashtag Twizzard. And as people would tweet, it would drop the temperature on those thermometers, which inherently the curiosity factor was there. And then we also found out as we would share tweets people would send in on our giant screen in the rotunda, they'd take a picture of it and then tweet that again using the hashtag. And all of a sudden, we were getting tweets using the hashtag across the globe over this Black Friday weekend. And of course, then when it hits 32 degrees, there was a version of Let It Snow that it would play, and it would snow in the rotunda, creating essentially the indoor blizzard. And the first year we did it, we peaked at #6 trending topic on Black Friday on Twitter, and it was the #1 trending hashtag in Minnesota the entirety of the weekend through Cyber Monday. And it was great because everybody could participate, and we found people as they discovered it were tweeting along because they knew they were delivering something to the guests here. It was really again, a simple story told really well.
Excellent. Yeah. When you think about that, and you've got this incredible range of experiences that you've been able to participate in, develop, and learn from, what advice do you have for an experiential curator or an experienced developer in the retail space and in the experiential space?
I don't pretend to believe that I am qualified enough to deliver such advice, but I can tell you from my experiences, the things that have worked best for us are when it comes from an honest place and it isn't forced. Making sure that you're leading with the right reasons, and more often than not, it's going to be successful. We've talked a lot about creating experiences, and one thing I would like to mention that I think is really special that we did is, it was 4 years ago, we were talking about what to do for holiday, and we floated the idea, well, let's close on Thanksgiving. Instead of letting the Black Friday creep continue forward into that holiday, let's give that time back to the employees. And instead of paying time and a half on Thanksgiving, we'll pay time and a half on Black Friday, and we'll really bring a sense of ceremony back to Black Friday.
Yeah.
So sometimes, not all the time, the best thing to do is nothing. Yeah, just close your doors and take a minute and relax. And it was really nice because we all got to enjoy that day differently with our families, and everybody came back re-energized and ready for a celebration that day. That's one that I'm really proud of as well, because again, it was for the right reasons and it meant a lot to people. And being out in the mall with folks, guests who choose to come here because they heard that story or they knew that, really made it special. That's something that connects with people.
Yeah, and that authenticity can't be denied. It's something really powerful and touching. My last question for you, to kind of close things up, is what is something that, barring C19, once that passes, what's something you'd really like to do that you've never had the opportunity to do before?
Wow. Well, we do have a project that's in a little bit of limbo because of C19, but say that all that goes away, we've been working on a water park. And there's an exciting opportunity for the expansion of this space with a water park that I hope one day we can bring to fruition. I think it would be great, not only for the city and for the building, but for guests, because we've got a really special idea, and I would love to see that come to life.
Fantastic, Chris. Thank you so much for all of your insights, your experience, and everything you've shared with us today. It's been really fantastic speaking with you, and hopefully everybody's going to have an opportunity to come see some of the experiences that you've been developing and that project in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a great idea, and I really appreciate Charlie and Rachel and blooloop for putting this on. This is a great way to be able to connect this year, and I know they had the idea well before too. So kudos to them, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris, so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.